The next potential medical intervention is usually hormone therapy, which boosts levels of testosterone or estrogen. Opponents of gender...
Okay, so just on the puberty blockers themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, there are issues with this that have been talked about, which are it can mess up your bone density,
Mm-hmm.
and it can actually affect your brain development in ways in which they're not exactly sure how that manifests.
It just seems ridiculous to me that your body's normal cycle can be paused, and you, instead of going through puberty at 11, I don't know how, whatever,
go through when you're like 17,
13 or 15.
All right. While you're taking cross-sex hormones.
That just does not add up. That does not add up.
Well, it's very annoying, and this is part of the problem with like modern medicine. Like when I was given, when I was having acid reflux, and they gave me the protein pump inhibitors, which basically prevent your body from producing acid in your stomach. Like the doctors just pretend like that's just a totally fine thing that they can do. And it's like, well, no, you're basically fucking over your entire health if you're doing this.
Yeah.
If you're on these things, your stomach is not producing enough acid. You're not digesting food. You're not getting nutrients. Like it's not just preventing you from getting acid reflux. It has a whole effect like all over your body. And so too many doctors very stupidly try to look at medicine through this like very microscopic lens, as opposed to looking how all your systems kind of interact with each other. And you're right. The idea that you can just be on puberty blockers and it won't have any sort of side effects is just insane. It's obviously insane and obviously nonsensical.
Yeah. It's difficult for me to imagine that. Like there's dozens of systems working together in tandem. I don't even know what the puberty blockers do. Like, how did they find this stuff? All of these systems are based on this one hormone. This one hormone causes these dozens of systems to kick into gear.
Right.
I mean, what if you're stopping one system, but you're not stopping the other 7 systems, and they're, moving forward, but just deficient in certain areas because you're not getting enough.
Well, what I assume it does is, it basically sends a signal that prevents your brain from sending the signal that jumpstarts puberty.
Right.
Yeah. No, but the main concern for the trans kids regarding this, the puberty blockers, is the thing that they never address, which is the desistance rate. If the desistance rate is very high in kids that are not on puberty blockers, and it's very low for kids that are on puberty blockers, that's obviously a side effect of the puberty blockers.
Well, also, I think it could be psychological with sunk cost fallacy.
Well, it compounds on that too.
Of course, yeah.
And that's what Zucker talks about, because he's very careful when he says it's not just puberty blockers, but it's puberty blockers and also social transitioning.
Right.
So that would include So that would include both of those things. But
yeah, this is just so out there to think that that we know enough to say that this is safe. And it's crazy too, because the whole logic of it doesn't even make sense to me. You're going to take puberty blockers so you have time to decide, to make a decision whether or not you want to transition, even though the information that you would need to make an accurate decision is going through puberty.
Exactly.
How do you know? Like you're not even an adult. Like your sex drive hasn't even really fully kicked in, hasn't fully formed. Like how can you make a decision whether or not you'd be comfortable as a man or a woman before you've even had like a fully formed sex drive? Like I don't see it's so stupid to me.
But that's exactly the problem. And none of them ever address that issue.
Yeah. So you're pausing. You're like, okay, I want time so I can weigh the pros and cons. Even though the most giant pros and cons, you're literally prevented from even analyzing because of the situation that you've created. It makes no sense to me. The logic of this is 100% political. I'm going to use the Republicans hate trans people stick so that I can get reelected in the next election. And the thing that really bugs me is it's so, I mean, this is not good for kids. Like, not, at least not having this conversation or doing more research. I don't even know how you do this research if you're looking at it from a reasonable perspective, because none of this stuff seems like you could put past an ethics board. Could you? I mean, look, we're in various, if you lay out the situation like I just did to an ethics board, I mean, we're in very treacherous waters here.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to
think of it like
go ahead. I've said
a pause button, the thing you can't do easily on the HBO Max app. Now,
funny joke about HBO. Ha ha ha. Look, pausing puberty is easier than the HBO app. Ha 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 ha. Yeah, okay. Don't go into any of the science or complexity or anything. Someone told me once that John Oliver does really deep dives into things that give him a lot of information.
Yeah, this completely debunks that.
It does. Yeah, you're giving no information whatsoever. I mean, I would like to see a deep dive into all the different biological systems that interact during puberty. I know there's like a parasympathetic nervous system. There's brain development. There's all kinds of different systems. An endocrine system. Like the endocrine system has all kinds of hormones, right? Endocrine system, yeah. It has, I mean, there's not just testosterone and estrogen, right? I mean, there's all kinds of.
The next potential medical intervention is usually hormone therapy, which boosts levels of testosterone or estrogen. Opponents of gender-affirming care make a lot of alarmist claims about hormone therapy, from saying that it's experimental, which it is not.
Look, he's talking about the claims I just made. This is an alarmist claim, he's saying.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Let's see if he provides any evidence to back up what he's saying.
I'm making alarmist claims here.
Right.
To arguing that it sterilizes people. And look, for some, in specific situations, there can be risks to fertility, but for others, the effect is anticipated to be reversible if the medication is discontinued.
Okay. So, I looked through this Yale Science of Medicine report.
Okay.
There are some massive red flags in this report.
Oh, no.
That make me go, this seems to be very indoctrinational. They complain about.
Oh no!
Because the
patriarchy.
Well, so what he doesn't tell you is that the reason this report from this quote unquote Yale School of Medicine report exists is it's them complaining about Texas's saying that it's child abuse to do gender affirming care, and they basically go over through some of the medical stuff that the Texas report goes over, or that the Texas Attorney General's office produced, essentially to justify the decision.
Is this the same report that Jon Stewart was ambushing the woman about?
No, that was a different state. I forget.
Okay.
That one. That was
so there's more than one state that's going after this stuff. Thank God.
In Texas, it wasn't a law. It was the governor directed Child Protective Services to essentially, from an executive order, to determine that it would be child abuse to have affirmative care for transitioning for kids.
Okay.
Most of the other states are not doing that. They're just passing a law, which I feel like that makes more sense. I'm not sure legally the way in which Texas did it makes sense to me, but anyway. But so there are some things in the report that stuck out to me as kind of like bullshitty, including, they go through the same kind of bullshit talking points where they complain about rapid onset gender dysphoria and Lisa Littman and a bunch of other stuff. They cite some interesting articles and statistics about desistance rates, which when I read the articles seemed to contradict the way in which Yale people used the article. Like the source they were saying actually essentially what they were doing was,
wow,
they simultaneously took from the article that I'm trying to remember, I think Kenneth Zucker wrote the article. Kenneth Zucker, who wrote the article that's often cited that shows that there's like the 88 to 50% desistancy rate for kids.
Mm-hmm.
The Yale people, they cite that article when it suits them, and then they cite an article that's complaining about that article when it suits them.
Oh my. So they like to cherry pick from the article when it makes their case.
Which, maybe that's standard in these sorts of things, but it seems, doesn't seem right, in my opinion. It seems kind of bullshitty. But anyway, but then I looked up this claim. The effect is reversible, okay? Or they're talking specifically about sterilization. Let me see if I can find it again.
The reversible sterilization here.
Right. Okay, says, let's see. Puberty blockers, no. Gender-affirming hormone treatments can reduce fertility to some degree, while ongoing evidence suggests that these effects are reversible. Where's the one with the citation? Because that's the important one. The AP opinion, the AG opinion falsely states that, quote, the medical evidence does not demonstrate that children and adolescents benefit from engaging in these irreversible sterilization procedures. Where was it? I just found it. It's puberty blockers. Puberty blockers. Oh, here we go. Treatment. So the line says, treatment with gender-affirming sex hormones impacts fertility while drug therapy is ongoing, but the effect is anticipated to be reversible if medication is discontinued. Okay.
On its own, or you got to take some other medication?
So that's what this report says. But then when I actually looked at their citation... Okay, well, actually, let me continue with the Yale report. Okay. It says, for transgender men, that's a person assigned female at sex, testosterone treatment can affect ovarian function, inhibiting menstruation in the majority of those on therapy. The evidence shows that most transgender men who had regular menses before starting testosterone therapy are reported to resume menses if testosterone is discontinued.
Most, that's a very accurate term.
Well, there's a massive, this is actually horribly dishonest. Okay. Because you have to remember, what is the topic being discussed? It's putting kids on puberty blockers and then giving them cross-sex hormones, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we read this again, it says, evidence shows that most transgender men who had regular menstruations, let's just say menstruations.
Which means they already went through puberty.
Before starting testosterone therapy are reported to resume menstruation if testosterone is discontinued.
Right.
Okay.
Which means they already went through puberty.
Right. Which would be irrelevant to the topic because we're talking about giving kids puberty blockers first, so they would never develop this in the first place.
Right. That's the crazy thing. They never get their first period.
Exactly. And you know what? This actually was really, this is part of why I looked at this Yale paper and thought it was bullshit. So they cite a study, and I look at the study, and in the study, it's people that did not receive puberty blockers as children, and they're talking about people who like started to transition when they're in like their 20s or something.
Oh my.
So completely fucking irrelevant.
Right.
Completely irrelevant.
Not children.
To this topic. Right. Not children. And then I looked into a further citation that they put forward, and one of their own, and they don't cite this, but one of their own citations says that the majority of women who are given puberty blockers and then are given cross-sex hormones will forever alter their ability to have children after that.
51%.
Yeah.
So that's pretty high.
The majority of women. I don't know if actually I don't know the exact numbers. It said it was the majority of
a coin flip, basically.
the majority of women who are on puberty blockers and then take cross-sex hormones for an extended period of time and then decide to switch back later will not be able to have children.
Not
according to a study they cited. Okay.
Not according to John Oliver, though.
Right.
Yeah.
So what they did say that some men who are given puberty blockers and transition can then still produce sperm afterwards.
Right.
But even that is still like there's a high risk of,
little like retarded sperms,
or if it's just not going over so well.
Right.
Okay.
The kind that just swim in circles.
Right. So this Yale report is very dishonest in how it frames this. And John Oliver, who I doubt had anyone actually read the citations of any of this shit, just read their report, just uncritically absorbed this information and assumed it was true.
Yeah, because Republican bad.
Right.
He's just like licking it up. He's like, oh, yum, yum, yum.
Yeah, I just couldn't believe when I was reading this report how dishonest these citations were given. That when you actually look at them, they cite studies that either say the opposite of what they're saying or have nothing to do with the topic. So
John Oliver, instead of asking himself, well, is this information safe for children? He's like, well, but does it hurt Republicans? Oh, my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Who cares about the children? We need to beat up some Republicans before the next election.
Right.